Hey you guys, I wanted to walk through just a couple scenarios with you guys looking at how we would determine the time of death given varied circumstances. These are all taken from that textbook that I have that I've kind of been using as a guide. I know you guys don't all have a copy. I wish you did, but eventually, hopefully, we'll get a copy of the textbook for school. But anyway, I want to walk through some of the scenarios, and I want to talk through, okay, what's logically, how do we determine death in this given situation? I'm not going to test you guys on this. It's more just, let's walk through it together and talk about it, and then we're going to move on to anthropology next, I think. Forensic anthropology, I should say. So anyway, looking at some different scenarios, let's say we found a body and there was no evidence of rigor. Okay. And I told you to estimate the time of death. If you're looking at that and there's no evidence of rigor, that's really without any other, methods of determining time of death, it's really almost impossible. So if there's no evidence of rigor at all, that means that you are either the person could have just died, right? And rigor hasn't begun yet, so like under 2 hours, or it's been over 36 hours and the person has lost all rigor. Okay. Now, thankfully, in those scenarios, right, there would be other types of evidence we could use to determine that, right? So if the body had just died, you would be able to see really not a whole lot of temperature drop. So as far as like liver mortis and alga mortis, the temperature would be relatively close to normal and there wouldn't be blood pooling yet. So that would also indicate whether the person had just died, right? If it had been over 36 hours, you would definitely be able to see where the blood had pooled, other decaying things would happen. And so you wouldn't use just rigor to determine if they had just died or if it had been over 36 hours. All right. All right. So let's just move on to another scenario. Let's say you found a body and the entire body was exhibiting rigor. Okay, so it was stiff everywhere, right? Well, usually, like we've talked, rigor starts in the head and neck and then moves down the body, and then it leaves the same way, right? So if it's stiff all the way through and exhibiting rigor all the way through the entire body, it's most likely around that 12-hour mark, because that is when the peak of rigor occurs, is around that 12-hour mark. Okay. Let's say you discovered a body and there was rigor present in the legs, but there was no rigor in the upper torso. Okay. So rigor in the legs, no rigor in the torso. You could assume that the peak of rigor, already occurred and it's slowly moving out. So the legs would be like the last place, where rigor is present. So it would be probably somewhere between the 12 and 36 hour mark. Okay. 24. So if peak rigor is at 12, right? So the rigor from the upper part of the body has already dissipated. Okay. And so then if you only have it in the legs, you're probably between the 24 and 30 hours. Okay. Let's say you have a body that was discovered in a gym, like doing weights, like in the weight room at a gym. Okay. And let's say you knew this man, came in and did arm curls every day. All right. And when you examined his body, the only place of rigor was in his arms, right? There wasn't rigor anywhere else. Well, that would be a little bit weird. However, when you do excessive forms of exercise, that builds up lactic acid in your muscles. And so usually rigor works, begins in the face, right? And works its way down. But if there isn't rigor in the face yet, and there's no rigor anywhere else, right? It's only in his arms, then he's less than 2 hours dead. Okay. So he died. The excess lactic acid in his arms are what's causing him to have rigor there before the rest of his body. but because it can't, his muscles can't relax in his arms due to the excess lactic acid. So he died less than 2 hours ago. All right, sorry, I'm tired today. Didn't sleep very good last night. All right, let's look at a couple other scenarios. Let's say a frail elderly woman's body was found in her apartment on a hot summer's evening. Her body exhibited advanced rigor in all places except for her face and her neck. As we look at that, this woman seems to be recently past the peak 12-hour of rigor and is just starting to lose rigor. Based on this information, her estimated time of death would be approximately 15 hours. However, it is also noted that the woman is frail. This usually accelerates rigor. Okay, so the older you are, and like if you had osteoporosis or your bone density had decreased, okay, that would accelerate rigor, okay? And so then you could say, okay, well, maybe time of death was around 12 hours. But another situation that you would want to consider was that it was on a hot summer evening. So the apartment was above normal temperature. Above normal temperature. And high ambient temperature would also accelerate your rigor. So this might make the time of death closer to 9 hours. So looking at that situation, she's in a hot apartment. She's frail, meaning her bone density is less than it would be for a normal young person, right? And so you might start at 15 hours, and then you'd kind of back it back down a little bit. It was probably closer to 9 hours. Okay, let's look at another scenario. A body was discovered in the woods. The man had been missing for 2 days. The average temperature the past 48 hours was 50 degrees Fahrenheit. When the body was discovered, it was in the peak of rigor. Okay, so let's look at this scenario. Because the body was outside in 50 degrees, in 50 degree temperature, that actually might delay rigor because that's much lower than body temperature. So you could assume that the time of death would then be closer to 24 hours. Let's look at one more situation. Let's say a victim was found in a snowbank alongside a road. His body is rigid. How long has he been dead? Okay, so let's look at found in a snowbank. The cold temperature would delay the onset of rigor, okay? So you would expect it would be more than 12 hours because of that cold temperature. So probably like 15 to 18 hours if his whole body is exhibiting rigor, but he's in a snowbank. So I hope that was, helpful and interesting as we look at determining time of death. There's a lot of there's insect evidence, there's algor mortis and liver mortis, which I didn't bring a lot of scenarios into those just because it would take a long time. However, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm also posting a little article that I want you to read and respond to today on body farms and Bill Bass, who kind of founded body farms or started the first body farm, where you can actually study human decay and that helps determine time of death. So, all right, you guys, have a great weekend. See you later.